In this video, we're gonna see how we can track form submissions, meaning when people land on our website and submit a contact form or a newsletter form. But also we're going to see how we can track important link clicks, meaning when people click on, for example, the telephone number or, for example, the email address, trying to get in contact with us. And also we're gonna see how we can send this data to Google Analytics, for example, and how we can use this data for our reporting, but also for our advertising. This is more coming up, so let's dig in. So when it comes to tracking, of course, tracking bookings, so reservation is the most important thing, but bookings, reservations are actually macro conversion, big conversion. However, there are conversions and conversions in the sense that there are also micro conversion, meaning conversions that are probably less important or less direct, let's put it this way. They're anyway leading to what is going to be next, a macro conversion. So steps that people, potential travelers, potential customer may take that we might want to track, both from an analytics and advertising perspective, in order to drive better performance, to drive better ads, and to have a more granular reporting. And so when it comes to a hotel website, generally speaking, other than tracking bookings and other than tracking all other booking steps, meaning the rooms and the rates that people view, the add to carts, the initiate checkouts, so all these middle steps that lead to bookings, we might want to track other activities, other events, especially on the website. And typically this micro conversion may be link clicks, so clicking when people and users click on specific links that may be, for example, the email link or the telephone link, or again, maybe specific pages that are quite important to us, or maybe link to a specific special offer. Or again, probably even more important, people submitting a contact form, because a lead is anyways a potential customer, and therefore that customer, that user may be potentially converting later on offline, or probably over the phone or over the email, but anyway not online in the strict sense, meaning not through the booking engine. And so we might want to track all these kind of activities. And so this is pretty easy, especially when using a tool like Google Tag Manager. So I'm going to be showing you how to do that. And I am in here with my demohotel.directbookings.com. So this is just a demo hotel, of course. So essentially, if you look at here, we might want to track a few different things. And so let me check what kind of things we can potentially track. So let's start from the top of the page. First of all, we might want to track the check availability button, meaning the intention of people to potentially convert later on. In other words, we are not tracking bookings, but we can track clicks on the check availability button. Speaking of which, I have shot another video that I'm linking here that you can see in order to see exactly how you can track this button, how many clicks you get on this button. And the reason why you might want to track that is because when you have the number of clicks that you get on that, you may compute, you can easily compute and even granularly computing what is your CTR website booking engine, meaning how many people land on your website and how many of them do actually jump onto the booking engine. Because if you think about it, a website, people don't buy on your website, people buy on the booking engine, and therefore the main goal of a booking engine, the main goal of a website is to drive people onto the booking engine, and that is the most obvious thing that you want to track. But other things that you might want to track, for example, are contact form. That is actually the second or probably the first micro conversion that you want to track. So micro, not macro, micro conversion that you want to track. And so how to do it? So contact form can be many different shapes of form. Like in this case, I have two forms. One is the newsletter that I don't recall where I have put it, but let me see. Okay, here I don't have it, but let me see. We have, for example, contact us page. Okay, here we have a form in the contact us page, and therefore we might want to track people submitting a form in here, all right, leaving their contact information and details in here. And so let's see how to do it, because it's very easy with the Google Tag Manager. So we might want to head up in our Google Tag Manager demo account. And so we just hit a new and create a new tag. It is going to be, for the time being, Universal Analytics. By the way, I'm going to be shooting another video as part of the Google Analytics for Hotels Advanced, which is going to be entirely based on Google Analytics 4. But the concept, so 90%, probably 80-90% of what I'm gonna show you here can be used actually also for Google Analytics 4. So triggers are gonna be the same. It's just the setup of the tag that of course is gonna be slightly different. But okay, let's just focus on Universal Analytics, even though we all know in January 2023 Universal Analytics is going to be discontinued. But anyways, let's start with this. So first let's give it a name, and typically I just go for UA, which stands for Universal Analytics event. And then we just give it a name, something that we can easily recognize when navigating through all our tags. And so this is just a contact form, simple as that. So Google Analytics Universal Analytics track type is going to be an event. It's not a page, an event, because the page that we, sorry, the format that we have here is not a page itself. We want to track not people jumping onto a specific page, but people submitting this event, the event of the submitting a form. And so what do we want to send? The category can simply be form, and then action. It can be, for example, what can we do? It can be actually nothing, or like a contact us. So let's assume that, for example, we have another form that is a newsletter form, all right? So people on your website that can potentially submit two contact forms. One is the regular contact us form, and one is the newsletter form. To be honest, I don't recall whether I have a newsletter form on this demo website. I will check it later. But that's the point. I mean, you can differentiate the action in that sense. So meaning having the two submission under the same category, form contact us, and then form newsletter. And so we're just going to differentiate here the two, so between contact us and newsletter. Label, I leave it empty, value, I leave it empty. There is nothing else that I need to set up other than giving the Google Analytics variable. I hope you have already that done, but it's super easy. So which is essentially just your UA code, and then the trigger. This is of course then the most important thing, because we need to tell and instruct the GTM on when exactly we want this tag to fire. And of course, logically, we want to fire the tag when people submit the form. And the good part of Google Tag Manager, it's that it has already a form submission built-in variable. So all we need to do is create a new trigger, and then if you scroll a little bit, you will see that we have under user engagement the form submission. And now here we can say, okay, what exactly do you want to track in terms of form submission? All forms, meaning all the forms that are present on the website, as opposed to specific forms. Now, in this case, if I want to go back, since I want to differentiate contact us from a potential newsletter form, so I need to differentiate the two triggers. So one trigger for the contact us form and one trigger for the newsletter. And so how to do it? In this case, it becomes probably a little bit techy, but it's super easy, because you can go into your view. I mean, if you are in Chrome, and then, you can go into the view, and then developer, and then JavaScript console. And then in here you just simply hit this icon here on the top left corner, and then point onto the first field of the form. And then all you have to do, this is the HTML structure, you will need to climb up as much as possible until you see the first available form tag. This is exactly what we need to look into. And if you look into it, you can see that this form has a certain classes and then also an ID, which is specifically contact form. And you can use both of them, or whatever of them, either of them, in order to differentiate between this form and supposedly the newsletter form is going to have a different ID. All right. So when there is an ID, typically use the ID, because ID is typically unique, whilst classes can be shared across different HTML elements. And so in this case, I'm just going to get and copy this ID contact form, and I'm going to be using it in my example. So some forms. And now in this case, you see that I cannot select any specific, any form related variable. It's no big deal because we just need to activate it. It's there, but for whatever reason, GTM, when you have a new account, it doesn't activate all built-in variables by default. So you need to manually do it, and you just do it once, and then it's going to be available for all. So what we need is actually the form ID or form class. And so we just go into choose built-in variable. And then in here you will see all these flagged are the built-in variables that are enabled already. All others can be enabled. I know if you don't use them, it's better just to leave them disabled, because otherwise it may be a little bit too complicated to navigate through all of them. And so just activate whatever you need. Like in this case, I didn't see it. Actually, form ID is already enabled, but we can activate it also, for example, form classes, and so on and so forth. But okay, now form ID was already there. Now I just select form ID and then equals, and then I paste the value that I copied over, right? So again, here in this case, I'm setting up this trigger, and the trigger is going to fire my contact form tag. So I'm setting up this trigger, which is going to be based on form submission, but not all forms, but just the forms that have the form ID, the value of the ID tag being contact form. All right, so the last thing I need to do is just to give it a name, and so form, and then a contact, and then save. Okay, and then all I have to do is just to hit this. So you see that now the newly created trigger has been appended to the newly created tag, which is going to trigger and send these values here. So an event to my Google Analytics with an event category value of form and an event action value of contact us. And so let's save it, and let's immediately test what we have done by hitting the preview mode. So let me just copy this page first. Let's also close this one. And so preview. Hit. Okay, so now we are in our page in preview mode. So you will see this window here. So I'm just going to make a test, test. Okay, now let's, before hitting the send message button, let's see in preview mode in here. So we have the 6 event automatically listed in the payload. Now if I hit the send message, whatever happens next, okay, here I have another event listed in the payload, which is, as you can see, form submit. That of course comes from the trigger that we have created, and as you can see here, the tags file the UA event contact form. So the tag is properly set, has been properly set up, is firing correctly. So by clicking on it and then clicking on show more, we can see a bunch of stuff in terms of what exactly has been sent on to Google Analytics. So here is my Google Analytics ID, of course, and then in a moment I'm going to show you what we have there. And so we have sent an event with the category form and action contact us. And so this works just perfectly fine. So now let's get back to our Google Analytics and see also in there if we see these actions reflected in the real-time reports. So real-time and then events. And then as you can see here, we have our event being recorded, event category form, and then event action contact us. Alright, so you see it's pretty simple, and it doesn't require any technical knowledge other than just reading probably a little bit the ID of the contact form. But that's really the most, let's say, techy part in that sense. So now let's try something else, because now we have tracked this. And now let me get back to the home page and see where, for example, we have a sign up form. Okay, here in our case, now we have a newsletter form. All right, so now newsletter, technically speaking, or from an HTML perspective, is anyway a form. As a matter of fact, if you go again into view and then developer and then JavaScript console, and then you select again the field, which is the email field, and again in the HTML structure you try to climb up until you see the form tag. Well, you will see that anyway this is a form, which is pretty similar to the form, to the contact us form, but as you can see now the ID is different. All right, so I'm not sure if you remember, the class used to be the same across the two, and that's why probably the class was not a good filter. But the ID typically is unique, and therefore you're pretty much sure that this value only belongs to this form. And so let's set up the tracking of this new letter submission form, and so get back to Google Tag Manager. Now I can hit the new button, but since I'm pretty much lazy, I'm just going to actually copy or duplicate the existing one. So I selected the previous tag there for the contact form tag, and then I simply hit the copy button. And then I have a carbon copy of the same tag, and I'm just going to replace newsletter. I'm just going to replace whatever I want. So newsletter. Okay, so now here in the values, I can keep, for example, category. I want to keep form because I want both forms to be tracked under the same category. That's just my preference, but you can have something different. This is totally arbitrary to you. I mean, you can put any kind of value that you want. And what I'm going to change is the action, so no longer the contact us, but I'm going to put newsletter. And of course, Google Analytics settings remains the same, the GA code. What I'm going to change is the trigger, because of course now the form is no longer the contact us form, but is another form. And so again, in this case, I can hit the plus and create a new, or I can take the new one, the existing one, and copy. I typically copy everything I can because I'm seriously lazy when it comes to these kind of things, and therefore I want to do as least as possible. So for newsletter and form submission, in this case a form ID is no longer contact form, but let's see what it was because I do not remember. Newsletter. Okay, I just copy the value and I just place it in here, save it. Okay, now I need to remove the previous one, and I just want to select the new trigger for newsletter, save. And there it is. So we have another one, and again test all the time. So whenever you do some changes, don't give it for granted, always test that it's going to be working. And then I closed the wrong page, it was like this. Okay, and then before hitting the subscribe button, let's see in here what we have. So we reached this point, so we should be having a new event firing after this window is loaded as soon as I hit the subscribe button. So let's see how it goes in the back here, and here it is, a form submit. And as you can see now, this UA event newsletter tag fired, whilst the UA event contact form didn't fire, because of course the form is different. As a matter of fact, you can actually see it by clicking on it, and you can see that now this is a little bit weird. There is a typo actually in how Google Tag Manager Preview Mode outputs these values here, but you can see that now this tag here has a trigger which is ID. Actually here should be ID, form ID, but it outputs whatever the value is. So form ID equals contact form, but red cross is not true, and that's the reason why the tag doesn't fire, as opposed to this one, which is the newsletter, that has all green flags, green checks, because everything is just as it was supposed to be. So let's check again a little bit what kind of values have we been sending. And so category, form, action, newsletter. And again, let's check in analytics, and now we have, you see in real time I didn't touch, and I didn't even have to refresh the page, so just have the new event being recorded. So form, you see event category is going to be the same, and then event action, newsletter. All right. So There it is. And what else can we track? Let's close a little bit. Oh, sorry, I didn't have to close a demo tab. Okay. So let's see what else we can track. We mentioned above, for example, emails and telephone numbers. Okay, so when it comes to, let's start with telephone number, because it's emails and telephone numbers is going to be exactly the same. It's literally the same, so it's just going to be slightly different how we're going to set that up. But okay, let's start with telephone number. So we want to track people clicking on a telephone number. So if your website is a little bit smart in that sense, so your telephone number should be clickable. It's a link, a real link. It's just that the link, sorry, the URL behind it is not of a web page, is of a telephone number. As a matter of fact, you can see my cursor now, I stopped over the telephone number, and on the bottom left of my screen, or the bottom left corner of my screen, you should see the preview of the link behind this number. And as you can see, it starts with the tel and then colon. And so I'm going to be using that to set up the trigger, which will ultimately fire the tag. All right, so let's get back again. And so in this case, let's create a new tag. I'm just going to call it again UA, and then this time is not a form, sorry, event, and then this time is not a form submission, but it's just going form click. Okay, Google Analytics, always universal event, universal analytics, track type event, and then category. For example, what I typically do is click in terms of category, and then under action I just going to put eventually like what exactly is that link related to, like in this case is a phone click. Next time I'm going to be doing click to email, it's going to be click and action email. All right, so this way I'm going to differentiate how I am going to separate them. So, but this is the point. So click phone, I can actually even put a label or a value. Now value doesn't make any sense because there is no monetary value or whatever. What we can do, for example, if we really want to be super granular, is to send the page, meaning the page path. Is this the home page? Now, since, for example, this telephone number is in the footer, and therefore the footer is something that is present on each and every page of the website, I might want to track where eventually people are clicking, which page people are clicking on that telephone number. And so, for example, very simple, I don't have to create anything because it's already a built-in variable, and page path. All right, page path in case of a home page, it's just going to be a /, and after that, if it's any other inner page, it's just going to be the relative path of that page. So let's make an example. All right, so Google Analytics, I'm going to select again Google Analytics variable, and then triggers. I just going to create a new trigger, so need to create a click. All right, so before we selected the submission, form submission, in this case it's just a click. Now, is that an all elements or just link? Now technically this click here is a link. All right, and so I just want to select just links. And same as before, do we want to track all links? Because if so, every single link, even buttons here, are going to be used as a variable to actually activate this trigger. But in this case, no, we don't want actually this trigger to be activated on all links, but just some links. And what kind of links do we want? Click classic, click ID, click URL. Now, in this case, it's very simple because you can simply type the URL behind the link. All right, so the destination. And so what I typically do is that click URL contains and then tel colon. All right, again here, if I mouse over, you will see that on the bottom left corner on the screen, the preview of what the link is. And so you can see that it starts with tel and then the colon. Now tel colon is the typical syntax of telephone links. And therefore that's all I need. So that's pretty much it. So in this case, I'm just going to give it a name, phone. Okay, now it's attached to my tag, and let's try it again in preview mode. It got stuck, leave it a little moment, preview, okay. Contact, maybe we go directly to the home page. Okay, let me scroll all the way down where we have our link. And so again, let's preview first. We have these 6 events, standard events in the payload. So as soon as I click here, we should be having another event. So now this is just a prompting an alert. Is actually a pop-up saying that I can open my VoIP default tool, which is in this case is Skype. Now I don't need it. So let me get back. That's not important, I'm going to close it, but what's important is that now you can see here a link click being recorded, and if I click on it, you can see that our tag has fired as expected, so the UA event phone click. So let's click on this and let's see what has been sent onto Google Analytics. So the event category click, event action phone, and then label is just a / because we are in the home page, so there is no relative path other than just a / in this specific page. And so let's see in Google Analytics, and now here we have a new event, click phone, and then if we click on the click category, you can see also the event label, which is the /. Now let's try, for example, with another page, so that we can see the label changing to a new path. And so I'm going to be, let me get back here. So this is all the events recorded. This is the last one. So as soon as I click on this, there it is. We should have a new link click, and there it is again, our event phone click. Let's click on this, show more. So phone category, event category click, event action phone, and then label is Villa, which is the relative path of the page that I am at. Okay, so which is this, and you see how it works. Now there is this is pretty much it. We can actually do probably, okay, let's do it also for the email, even though I think I don't have an email, because in this case it's not clickable. You see, it's not really clickable, but let me pause a moment. I'm going to change this one. Okay, here I am again, because I made a quick change relative this email address. So I made this email address clickable or linkable. As a matter of fact, you see that from a look and feel design perspective, it looks like a link. And if I mouse over the link, you will see again in the bottom left of my screen the preview of what the link behind this text is. And as you can see, all mails, if all telephone starts with colon, all email starts with mail to colon. All right, so same principle. I guess this is going to be super easy. So we can start again from what we have already done, phone click. We take this, and again, I'm lazy, so uncopy UA event, phone click, email click, and so event remains the same, category click, action, we can see email. Now here we can say the page again, or maybe if we want, we can actually trigger the email address itself, in the sense that if you have a multiple email address on your website, maybe you have a contact page, a contact us page where you list a whole bunch of email accounts that people can reach out to. Maybe you simply wanted to send actually the exact value, the exact email address that people have clicked on. And so that is also pretty much easy, because you can simply select the label, which is going to be, in this case you don't see it, it's going to be click text, which is the text of the link, simple as that. So again, it's a built-in variable, but if you don't see it, you will just need to activate it. All right, so you just go to click text, you see here that is not enabled. Now we have enabled it, and there it is. All right, and now we have it listed in our list of variables, and the click text is going to be sent over as a label. And again, when and where do we want this tag to fire? Is not when people click on a phone, but eventually when people click on an email. So it's going to be similar to click phone. Let's start creating a new one. We just call it already click email, and then it's going to be just links, again same as the phone number, because that is in fact a link. The mail to event link is in fact a link. And so all links, some links, which one? The click URL contains, or it can actually even start with, but also it goes with contains is more than enough, mail to semicolon. You can actually skip it, doesn't really make any difference. So save and save, and again test it, preview. We just go in preview mode, and let's see, by clicking on our mail link. So again, preview mode here, we have 6 events. So as soon as I click, we should be having the 7th event. Now this will open up my client, my email client, so Outlook, Thunderbird, whatever that is, so no need. But as soon as I get back, here we see the link click event listed in the payload. So if we click on it, we can see now our event, UA event, email click, and if we click on it, all the values that we have set up. So category click, action email, and as you can see, the label is actually just going to be the label of the link that we clicked on. All right, so simply the text, simple words, is purely the text. And that is how it works. So analytics, here we have event action, and this time the event label is info@demohotel.com. So you can even see it from a higher perspective. Event category click, and then event action email. Now, that said, all we have to do, always remember to submit your changes. Events. Well, in this case, okay, let me skip it because it's not important. This is just a demo, but always remember, it's actually very good practice to always put a name and a description so that you can follow up and eventually retrieve what you did in the past if you, for example, made a mistake, or if you misconfigured something. We can always actually get back to a previous configuration. Now, why is this important? Because now, I mentioned before, this is important from an analytics and advertising perspective. Analytics, of course, because now everything is being tracked in Google Analytics, and so everything, especially the events, are going to be listed under the behavior and then events, and then here you're just playing around with them. All right, now it's empty because, of course, we just started tracking them, so we have no previous events, but it's off. Tomorrow, in theory, if you do that for your hotel, you should be seeing some values popping up in here. And how you can work with them is totally up to you. Because these are pre-configured reports, which are pretty useful, of course. So you can see here primary dimension, event category, event action, event label. Let me see if I move already onto today, but today's data is never actually updated. But you can see already the event category, form, click and form, and then action. You can narrow down to the specific values, and so that's why you can see total events, unique events, and so on and so forth. Now, from a statistic perspective, a report perspective, what I really like to do typically is to create my custom reports. All right, because I want to have some more granular view on my events. And by the way, events can be of any type. It can be anything. It's just up to how you set up the tracking. And so, for example, I can have a dimension drill down, so event category, and then I can put. Let me just go very broad. So sessions, users. Sorry, that was unexpected, but it was becoming a little bit too noisy. And apparently it was a very serious discussion, but now it seems to be quiet. So let me get back to where I was. And so, yeah, I mean, I was saying you can create your custom reports depending on what exactly you want to look at. And so this is just an example event category, and then you select your bunch of session, and then as soon as you save it, you can have your custom reports with all of your metrics and sessions listed as you have set them up. And so this is about the analytic part, but there is also the advertising part, which is actually pretty interesting and pretty cool, because well, analytics and advertising come together, and they really work hand in hand. Because now, I mean, in the goals section of Google Analytics, you can now use those events as goals, or to actually connect and link those events to goals. And when you have goals, you can actually connect those goals to your Google Ads account, for example. And so when you have goals imported into your Google Ads account, you can actually have a way more granular view of your performance on your campaigns, because you can see whether your campaigns bring a lot of leads, for example, other than bookings, whether people coming and landing on your website click on the email address or the telephone number, or many other things. Again, the events that I showed you, so link clicks, form submission, are just examples, all right? So, but events can be of any type, and I used actually many more events in what I think is a better way to track the kind of engagement, the level of engagement of my users on my site or any customer site. But you get the point. Now we need to create goals, and the way to do goals, or to create goals, is very easy. So you hand up into the goal section, and then your goal, and then let's say that we want to track first the form submission, form contact, and then that's the goal number 1. And so it's not a destination, it's not a duration, it's not a page screen, it's what? An event, just what we have sent and set up in Google Tag Manager. And in here you will see the same values that we see in the configuration part of Google Tag Manager. And so if we get back to Tag Manager, and if we take, for example, this is the contact us form, we will see category, action, label, and value. Same things that we have in here, category, action, label, and value. And so what do we need to do is just need to copy part of them or all of them in order to create our goal. And so category, form, action, contact us, that is going to be my goal. And I'm going to hit save. And so I'm going to create a new goal, for example, for newsletter. All right, so form newsletter. Now I could potentially even create one goal combining both a newsletter and contact us form by simply doing like this, because both contact us form like this and newsletter, both tags share the same category. All right, so they both have a category value equal to form. And so if I don't need to differentiate between the two, the only thing that I need to do is just a category form whilst leaving action totally empty. All right, so with no values at all. Like in this case though, I'm going to be choosing newsletter, because I am going to differentiate, and so I'm going to have two different goals listed in my account. And there it is. Always hit potentially the verify this goal. Actually, you should be doing that like maybe you should be waited like tomorrow, or at least one day, because if I hit now, it's going to be having a 0%, because of course I just set up these events in Tag Manager, and therefore there is no data being tracked in Google Analytics. But if you check tomorrow, you will certainly see some values. All right, so that is it. And so let me see what else. We can see another event, for example, for let me see, email clicks, event, continue, and then a category is just going to be this time click. What is it? Email click. So category is click, whilst action is email. And there we have it. So it's done. And now again, so this is valuable from two perspectives. First, now when you have goals, other than the events per se, but now goals can also be used in the conversion reporting. And so when you head on to, for example, first you have them here, goals reported. But the most important thing is that from now on, if you head over, for example, into your acquisition, and then you go typically all traffic or source and medium. Now this is a test, so there is no data, but you can see here the conversion section. You can now navigate through the goals that you have just set up. And so you can see exactly what source and what medium, in this case, performed a goal. All right, and so you can really become granular from that perspective. But again, the most important thing, in my opinion, other than analytics, is because of the Google Ads linking. So when you have your Google Ads account linked to your Google Analytics account, then you're going to be having the possibility to import your goals from analytics into your Google Ads account, and therefore in there you can definitely set up a very granular view of your performance, of your ad performance. Also, you can do that by creating custom audiences, meaning that you can create audiences, maybe retargeting audiences only to people who, for example, clicked on the email link. I'm just making that up, all right? Maybe it's not useful for that case, but you see the point. You can do so much more, and so many additional things when you have this kind of a granular approach to your data, that essentially is going to be very, very useful on one side, but on the other side, as you have seen, it's going to be super easy to set up, all right, especially with a tool with Google Tag Manager. So yeah, that's pretty much it, and yeah, I'll see you again the next time. Bye bye.